Yo, what's up guys? This is my 1 to 99 Dungeoneering guide. Now this video has been requested a lot, but I've just kept putting it off. However, I finally got around to doing it today, so here it is. Now this video is going to be a bit different to my normal 1 to 99 guides, because in this case there aren't a lot of useful items that you can take into a dungeon. In case you don't know, in order to go into a dungeon you need to be completely naked. You can't take anything in there unless you have a Dungeoneering aura, or an item that's related to Dungeoneering, which I'll show you later. So there isn't really anything from the outside that will be helpful to you. So instead of there being a lot of slides explaining information to you, the majority of this video is just going to be me showing you the gameplay of me doing Dungeoneering and explain what's going on. However, we are going to start off with a slide, and that slide is going to show you some of the useful skills that you can use in Dungeoneering. Now as you can see, first of all, we have combat up there. Now the whole of combat is related to Dungeoneering because you'll be able to use melee, ranged and magic in here, and I actually would not recommend doing Dungeoneering if you're lower than 60 combat. That's because you're going to have to be killing a lot of stuff throughout the dungeons, and obviously not to mention the bosses at the end of the dungeons as well. And if you're going to be lower than 60 combat, then your accuracy is just going to suck, and it's going to take you a while just to kill the most simple of monsters. So this is mainly why I recommend at least 60 combat before you start Dungeoneering, but if you do have over 60 combat then you should not have a problem. Prayer obviously goes hand in hand with combat. You can use the same prayers that you can outside of Dungeoneering. Fishing and cooking are also very useful here because there will be a lot of fishing spots, and the fishing XP that you actually get from these fishing spots is considerably high. And then once you've caught the fish you can just cook them and then use them whenever you fight. Herb lore is useful because sometimes you'll run into a door that requires like 105 strength in order to open, and obviously you can't just have 105 strength normally, so with herb lore you can make the potion within the dungeon and then boost it up to 105 so you can open the door. Even though most of the time I would say not to go through the trouble of doing that, it's really up to you on what you decide you want to do. The same goes for summoning. There are some new familiars in Dungeoneering. A few of these can just increase your damage output, so you can make them if you want. Runecrafting is useful because this will allow you to make some runes, and these runes are useful if you want to use magic as a combat style or if you want to teleport to a gatestone. And I'll show you what a gatestone is later on. Divination is useful similarly to herb lore, because with divination you can make these portents called the portents of passage. And what these will allow you to do is go through a door which you don't have the level requirements for, and the portents of passage will allow you to increase your levels depending on which portent it is. The highest portent of passage will allow you to open a door 20 levels higher than your skill level, and the lowest portent of passage will allow you only 2 levels. Just farm the higher level wisps to make the higher level portents. Woodcutting is useful because you might run into some branches along the walls. You can just chop these down and then you can do whatever you want with them. And finally, Slayer is useful just to access different monsters that you wouldn't be able to access otherwise. So now that you know which skills are going to be important to you, let's get into the training. If you've never been to Daemonheim before, which is where you start Dungeoneering, teleport to Lumbridge and then go to the pier where I'm going to now, and then just right click and travel with this Fremennik dude, and then once you get here just follow the path that I'm taking all the way up until you get to the Dungeoneering tutor. Talk to the tutor and he will give you a Ring of Kinship. This Ring of Kinship is needed if you want to start a party, so let's do exactly that. Just click on the Ring of Kinship. Then when the interface has come up, click on Form Party and you'll be in a party. Now if this is your first time doing Dungeoneering, then you're going to have to go through a Dungeoneering tutorial, in which case you'll be starting off at floor 1 on complexity 1. So climb down the dungeon entrance on either side, and then this is what it will look like. There will be a bunch of food and sometimes weapons and armor on the tables, so make sure you pick them up, and in your inventory you'll also be given some combat tools. Now what I recommend doing with these combat tools is binding the weapon that you're most likely going to use. So if your highest combat stats are attack and strength, then bind the melee one. If it's range, then bind the bow, and if it's magic, bind the staff. You can bind them by just right clicking them and clicking bind, and then at the start of every dungeon it'll be given to you straight away. Each player can bind up to 10 items or 12 if you have the Daemonheim aura 3 or above. However, just because you have 10 items bound does not mean you can have them all at once in a dungeon. In order to set up your binds, right click the smuggler and click bind setup, and then this menu will appear. Now as you can see, you can have 3 different loadouts. All of your bound items are at the top, and each loadout is represented by a color. So as you can see in my first loadout, which is green, I have my melee setup. In there I have a plate body, plate legs, and obviously the dual weapons. And this one is set as my primary loadout, and you can change this just by clicking on the little checkbox. In order to put a bound item into a loadout, just click and drag it into the box, and then click on the arrow to load it onto your character. It's really easy to use. If you don't understand it just for me explaining it, then go and try it for yourself. Just mess around with it for a few seconds and then you'll know exactly how to use it. Alright, so the main objective of completing a dungeon is to kill the boss at the end. And you should be doing this by opening as many rooms as possible, and by doing it in the least amount of time as possible as well. All of these things will maximize your XP per hour, and your XP per hour obviously varies as you go up in Dungeoneering levels. It just keeps going up and down, and it also varies if you decide to solo this or if you decide to do it in a team. With teaming, you will always get more XP per hour unless you get a really bad team. However, with soloing, you won't have to put up with anyone and you can just do it by yourself on your own time. I'd actually recommend soloing it because at the end of the day, the XP per hour is still pretty good. And like I said, you can do it in your own time and you won't have to put up with anyone. But obviously it's up to you, just choose whichever one that you want to do. If you do want a team, then I recommend going on to World 32, 77 or 117, and then you should be able to find a team relatively easily on those worlds. Okay, now let's talk about the different types of doors that you're going to be facing throughout the dungeon. The first one is the Guardian Door. If you're in a room that contains a Guardian Door, that means all the monsters in that room need to be killed before you can go through that door. If you try and go through the door, it will not let you. It says you have to kill all the monsters in the room before you go through it. So yeah, it's pretty simple. Just kill all the monsters and then make your way through it. Also, sometimes don't get confused with doors that just say enter door. These doors don't actually require anything in order to get through them, so don't waste your time killing stuff if it doesn't say Guardian Door. However, there is one exception to this. If you're in a room where there's a Megamastix, you will not have to kill this thing in order to get past the Guardian Door. The second type of doors are key doors. Now, keys are what you're going to be picking up throughout the dungeon, and these keys will allow you to open these key doors. Each key has a shape and a color, and these shape and colors correspond to the shape and colors on the doors. So as you just saw, I picked up a orange triangle key and then I opened the orange triangle door. You can see which keys you have at the very top under current keys. Just hover over them to see the name of them. And yeah, that's basically it. If, for example, you come across a blue triangle door, but you don't have a blue triangle key, then you're going to have to go looking for that blue triangle key in another place. So yeah, you may have to be going like back and forth throughout places within the dungeon. However, in the end, you should be able to unlock most of the doors. The only door that you may not be able to unlock are these skill doors. Now, these skill doors require various different levels in different skills. Dismissing this remote key just gave me 900 XP in summoning, so that door actually required a summoning level in order to get past by, and I had it. However, like I said, sometimes you will not be able to get through these doors. For this example here, this door required 104 farming in order to get past it. However, obviously I didn't have 104 farming. I'd have to boost up to 104 farming by either using herb lore or divination. But I mean, I've never boosted in order to try and get through an extra door. I've just thought it was a waste of time, and this is a bonus door, by the way. You don't actually have to get through this door. And when I say that, I mean only the doors that you actually have to boost up your skills. However, if you do, you'll gain more XP at the end of the dungeon. So it's really up to you on whether you want to spend time trying to boost up and going through this door. So just remember, the only rooms in which you need to actually kill monsters are rooms that contain Guardian Doors. Now, as for some special rooms, there are rooms that contain puzzles. Now, I can't explain every single puzzle on this video because there are a lot of them. So in the description, I've left a link to a page on the Rune Wiki. So in there, just find whichever puzzle that you're on and it'll show you how to do it. However, I am going to show you how to do a few of them just as an example. So in this room, I could only kill the ghost that had the spirit in it, I guess. I'm not sure what that thing is flying around, but I just could only kill the ghost with that thing in it. And then once I've killed all the ghosts, I'll be able to move through the doors. In this one, I just had to jump to the other side without that thing touching me. And then after that, just touch the lodestone and then all the doors will be unlocked. With this one, I had to create a climbing hook from scratch with the materials that they gave me. And then hook it onto the other side and then operate the winch to make the bridge come across. And then using that bridge, I'd have access to the other side to access the other doors. And finally, in this one, there were 3 statues. There was a melee guy, a range guy, and a magic guy. And one of them was missing a weapon, and you had to find out which one it was. You can just tell from the armor that they're wearing and how they look. So you just had to mine some stone from a crumbling wall and then turn it into the weapon that the guy was missing and then arm him, and then I'll be able to move freely through the doors. These puzzles can be quite annoying if you don't know how to do them, so just remember I've left that link in the description. Also, in some rooms you may find things such as fishing spots or mining spots or woodcutting spots, etc. These are really useful to harvest, especially if you need food. So if you find a fishing spot, just fish them all out, and then go back to the very beginning and buy some logs from the smuggler, make a fire and then cook all of them. And then after you've done that, you can just use this food whenever you're fighting monsters. Also, for example, let's say you find a mining spot, mine all of the ore out of it, then go back to the beginning and there's a furnace in the corner, smelt all of that down into bars, and then you can use the bars on the anvil to make whatever you want. This can be useful, especially if you want to make swords or armor, and also just remember, whenever you do that, make sure you bind it to you so you keep it for future dungeons. So after progressing through all the doors and rooms, eventually you will find the boss room. What I usually like to do when I find this room is drop the gate stone that you have in your inventory, and then press the home teleport to go back to the beginning to prepare for the fight. Now, the majority of the time, if you're a high combat level and you have good weapons and armor, the fight should be pretty easy. However, if you're not, you may need some extra food. So just go to the beginning and prepare however you want to, and then head through the portal that's in the beginning, and this will take you to wherever you drop your gate stone. And when you feel that you're ready, head into the boss room. Now, there are various different bosses for the various different floors that there are. Once again, I cannot explain every single boss because that will just take forever, so in the description once again I've left a link to a page on the RS Wiki that explains all of them. Just click on whichever boss that you're going to face and it'll tell you what it does. For this boss, for example, I just had to kill 4 of the mages around the main boss, and then after I've done that he'd be unleashed and then I'd be able to 1v1 him. This guy did have a few special abilities, one which I did not manage to avoid, and in doing so he managed to do like 9.5k damage to me. Luckily I had some food to heal myself back up, and then I eventually killed him. At the end of the dungeon you maybe drop some items, and those items will be placed automatically in your inventory, and if one of these items is better than one of your current items, then don't forget to bind it. And that's pretty much it. After you've killed the boss, click on the door that has opened up, and then all of your stats for the dungeon will have come up. In order to skip this, just click on the arrow in the top right, and then whenever you're ready to move on to the next dungeon, just click on the number that appears there as well. However, Dungeoneering isn't as simple as just going from dungeon to dungeon, and I'm going to explain what I mean by that. Dungeoneering uses a prestige system, so once you complete a dungeon floor, a tick will be put next to that dungeon floor, and obviously the floors that you haven't completed will remain unticked. So your main objective is to complete every single floor that is not checked, and then once every single floor that you can access is checked off, click the reset button in the bottom right, and then just go through the dialogue and click yes, and then all the floors will be unchecked again. The reason that you want to do this is because if you try and do a dungeon floor that is already checked off, you'll gain half the XP for the dungeon. I'm not sure if it's exactly half the XP, but it's a lot less than if you were to do it new. Also, the Dungeoneering skill remembers your progress from the last time that you've actually reset it, and it will use that progress in order to determine how much XP you'll get at the end of a dungeon. So let's say you do all the floors right now and then you reset. After you've reset, you'll be getting more XP for doing those floors once again. And that is because, like I said, it remembers your progress from the last time, and it will use that progress in like an algorithm to try and calculate how much XP you'll get at the end of a dungeon. So just remember to reset it, like I said, whenever all the dungeons are checked off. Now it's time to go through which floors you should rush or do normally. Doing floors normally will give you the optimal amount of experience for that floor, and that means doing them at complexity 6. If you're doing it solo, you should be doing it on a medium floor, and if you're doing it in a team, you should be doing it on a large floor. And rushing floors just means going through the floors as quickly as possible. This is done on a small floor on complexity 1. You're not going to be getting a lot of XP from doing this, but you only want to do this so you can get to the higher level floors. So which floors should you rush and do normally at each level? Well, from 1 to 35, you should do all of the frozen and abandoned floors normally, and these are the floors from 1 to 17. The rest of them will be unavailable to you, so you won't be able to do them anyway. So yeah, from 1 to 35, you will not have to worry about rushing floors. From 35 to 59, you should rush all of the frozen floors, and then do the abandoned and furnished ones normally. From 59 to 71, you should rush the abandoned and frozen floors, and then you should do the furnished floors and abandoned 2 floors normally. From 71 to 95, you want to rush the frozen, abandoned and furnished floors, and then you want to do the second set of abandoned floors and occult floors normally. And finally, from 95 to 120, you want to rush the frozen, abandoned, furnished and abandoned 2 floors, and you want to do the occult and warped floors normally. Following this will give you the max amount of XP possible, and if you don't already know, you rush floors just because those floors aren't really worth it for the XP. So let's say if you were 99 Dungeoneering and you wanted to get some good XP, you wouldn't be doing the frozen floors on complexity 6 on medium, because at the end of the dungeon, those floors will not give XP anywhere near to what occult and warped floors would. So yeah, like I mentioned before, that's why you rush these floors. Also, instead of rushing floors, you can skip them by using Dungeoneering tokens by talking to this guy outside. This is the guy that you spend all your Dungeoneering tokens on. Just at the top, you can see skip floors. Just click on that and then you can see which floors you want to skip. Obviously, if you're just training Dungeoneering, I would not recommend skipping these floors using Dungeoneering tokens, because obviously you want to spend those on things that matter like chaotic weapons. So unless you're going for like 120 and you want to get that 120 as fast as possible, only in that case would I recommend using this. Also, once you have 95 Dungeoneering, this guy will appear, and you can talk to him every day for a free card. And these cards just give you benefits within Dungeoneering, so using them will just make your life a bit easier. Also, this guy is found within Prif as well. Finally, to finish this video off, there's a daily challenge called Delve into Daemonheim, and if you don't already know what this is, I would really recommend that you do it. It just requires you to do 1 floor on complexity 6, and then it will give you a chunk of Dungeoneering XP. I'm pretty sure I did this from like 80 Dungeoneering all the way up to 99. It's seriously insane how much XP it gives you, and with that being said, if you have money to afford Viswax to extend it, then you should definitely do so, because extending it means that you have to complete 2 floors on complexity 6, however you'll gain double the XP. So if you do this daily challenge along with Sinkholes, which I did not forget to mention in this video by the way, I'm going to make another video on that in the future, probably Thursday, so stay tuned for that, then you're going to be getting a lot of XP. But anyway, yeah, that's the end of the video. Like I said, the sinkhole guide is probably going to come out Thursday, so once that's out, I'll post a link to that in the description. And as always, thank you guys for watching, subscribe if you're new, and peace.